Hey everyone, and welcome to Lead Your Movement. I'm Angelique Rewers, CEO and founder of The Corporate Agent, and this is our weekly show where we talk to business leaders and entrepreneurs who are using their platform in order to drive massive positive change in the world, something we all need a little bit of today. And on today's show, I'm going to be talking to someone who's very special to me. It's actually the very first mentor that I ever invested in as an entrepreneur. It was one of the best decisions that I ever could have made, was putting myself first in the business. It was a huge step and it completely changed the trajectory of my business and my life. And so it is a great honor to have this guest with us today, really a personal honor. Today's guest is Allie Brown. She is one of the most recognized entrepreneur coaches on the planet, having built a coaching and consulting enterprise that ranked in the Inc. 500, not the 5,000, the Inc. 500 list of fastest growing private companies in the United States. She's the host of the Glambition Radio podcast and also the founder of The Trust, a new private network for 7 and 8 figure women entrepreneurs. Allie's also been named one of Forbes' Women to Watch, one of Ernst & Young's winning women entrepreneurs, and an entrepreneur delegate for the United Nations Foundation's Global Accelerator. And in addition to all of that, many of you might remember that Allie was also featured on the ABC hit primetime show, Secret Millionaire. Welcome to the show, Allie Brown. Allie, it's so amazing to have you here.
It's great to see you. Okay, you're giving me production shame. Like this is amazing. This is amazing. Your background's great. You look great. It's great. It's great to be here. And thank you. Thank you for the beautiful introduction.
Oh my gosh. It's been a long journey when I think about my entrepreneurial journey, Allie. And over that time, so much has changed in the market and even in my focus. When you think about where you are now, what would you say is the movement that you're leading?
Mm, that's a big question. Um, Leading the leaders,
Mm.
which I think was always there underneath, but I didn't give myself permission to really own that until the last few years.
I love that you just said it was always there underneath because I feel like each evolution is just almost like a sharpening of what was already there. It's like another layer peels off of nonsense that you didn't need, and it just gets closer to the heart of what it's all been about.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say that?
Yeah. And I think it's good for people to hear that too, because everyone getting started thinks that they must have the vision and they're going to,
Mm.
and actually I never started with a vision. I started with needing to make money and not being happy in a job. And so,
Right.
it'll evolve. I think it's so important to remind us that it will evolve. The vision, if you don't have it right away, it'll be brought to you or uncovered. Just move in the right direction, what you feel is the right direction.
Yeah. You know what? When I started my job, it was for a company, it was about leaving my job. I felt smothered. I had to get out there. I had to do something. And I really started with just what I knew. I started by putting one foot in front of the other and focus on what I knew in terms of expertise. I knew corporate, as so I just started from that place. And I know some of the stories you've told in the past was from there. When, though, do you think you started to see the bigger vision, that move from I just need to build a
Mm.
business to this is not about me. This is about the women that I'm serving.
Yeah. I mean, that the part of serving did come, I would say, and just to give some context to everyone, this ain't my first rodeo. I've been left my job, I think, in like 98 in New York City. And I would say it took me a good, for me personally, I think the first 5 to 7 years were all about just proving to myself that I could do something, right? So like making the money, starter marriage, just just like, kind of trying things on, which I think we don't give ourselves permission enough to do now. And then probably when I started having, it's funny because in the pre-chat, you and I were just starting about, sorry, in the pre-chat, we're just talking about live events and how we miss those so much in that gathering. And it was when I started having the in-person workshops and seeing the impact of things that I was teaching or saying real time. which you can get a bit online these days, but it's still not the same. And back then there was no alternative. It was in person or a teleseminar really back then. And to see the impact though, and have people come up to me and say, you know, something that I learned at that last workshop gave us the income to be able to adopt our baby. I mean, just stuff that you would never even connect in your world, just trying to like make this business work, and starting to see that and the impact that you could have on people. The second shift I had though was in realizing, you know, who was that sweet spot for me? Who were those people that I could truly, you know, really impact in a way that was well beyond even their family and immediate clients, like was this true ripple. And that was working with the women that I really saw were the entrepreneurial leaders and the ones who had missions themselves that are sometimes still being uncovered, but they've reached a certain level where they have that power now. They have kind of the power to play. They have the power to like think about, what is this really about, and how can I build this, scale this? You know, I'm in no means wanting to play small, but also how much more can we tap into what this is really about? And that takes some permission. And you and I have had some conversations about target market and making these shifts, which I think are going to be more and more important later this year. But it takes courage to do that. And it may sound strange for people to hear that, but it takes a lot of courage to say, you know what, I know these are the women I impact the most, and they're the ones I'm going to focus on. And they're actually the only ones I'm going to work with. And that takes some doing to put that together.
I mean, you know, I think the courage piece comes in because when you're cutting off possibility, right? You're making that decision to narrow in and do that. But when I look at what's going on right now in terms of the entrepreneur space, it feels like a circus. It feels like madness. When I think back to 2000, I started my company in 2006. So when I think about what the pace was like and how much competition was out there and how much noise was out there versus where we are today, this idea of just trying to keep up with it all, Allie, it's just
Yeah.
absolute madness. And I don't know how people do it without a focus anymore, or at least get
Yeah.
anywhere without that focus.
Yeah. You're polite calling it a circus. I can think of a lot of other names. Which,
I didn't, yeah, keeping
which
it
is why I have
very
an
PG.
I have an E on my show sometimes on my
Yeah.
podcast, but it's true. And I think it's one of the quickest ways to get focused and get results in your business, but people are very averse to it because we are so programmed to look at the likes and the numbers and the followers. And I think this year's gotten even made it worse because everyone's sitting home. Now the latest thing is, you know, are you on Clubhouse? And I know you are, and you're enjoying it, but like
No, I
I
hate it.
felt this
I hate
pressure.
it. I hate it. I hate it. You know, I have been on in about a week and a half. I want you to finish your thought, but I have to say this. We're going to still do some stuff on there, but honestly,
Yeah.
nobody's getting on there preaching. I said the other day, we basically spent the last 10 years telling everybody that content is king. So people created all this content. Now we're going to spend the next 10 years on Clubhouse rehashing what we posted online for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what CEO has time to sit on Clubhouse all the day long?
Well, that's the point. When you're thinking, okay, is this strategic for me? And we don't want to get hate mail from people who are like, Clubhouse is working. Oh my God, if it's working, here's the thing: if it's working, do more of it. But what I actually want to back up to is the feeling of when that came out, right? And we first heard about it. We all first heard about it. What was that feeling? It was like, well, maybe we need to be on this new thing, right? And every new thing that happens, this is what's happening, and it's diluting our power. It's diluting our impact. It's diluting the mission and why we're here. And so I want everyone to just kind of pull back and remind yourself that this is a conscious choice you're making, who you're going to market to, how you're going to work with them, what you're going to charge, and what you will say no to. But the more you are immersed in all of this, we actually start to forget that. And there was a point in my business, Angelique, I did. And there was a point that's when I realized I had lost my ability to lead. I was trying to serve all. And when you say this out loud, it sounds ridiculous. Like, of course that was dumb. Why were you doing that? But you don't realize it in the moment. You're helping people. they're coming to you saying, gosh, it would be great if you come out with this. It's like, no problem. We'll create that. You need that. We'll do this. I just saw you on TV. I have no money. Great. We'll create for something for people with no money. I mean, really, like we had free to 100 grand. Like, I just was like, wow, all these people to serve. And so if you've done this before, and some of you watching probably cracking up, right? It's coming from this place, like, don't, give yourself grace, because we're all just excited to help people. And then you're going to get to a point like now, and also I want to share, I'm turning 50 this summer. So as a friend of mine says, like, we're going into the back nine, of the game. And man, what is this really about? How do I know that I'll have the most impact and be in my own lane and be that category of one where it's suddenly simple and perfect, and they're people I want to work with, and it was hard to disassemble that, though. That took several years. So be gentle with yourself if you're in the middle of this.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I do think you have to be gentle with yourself, but on the other hand, you have to make those tough decisions. You really can't be all things to all people. I also just want to point out that a lot of the people who sometimes have these great ideas about what you should do with your business are making no money in their own business. So just be mindful of where that advice is coming from. It looks easy from the outside, Allie. We get that all the time. It looks easy from the outside to build what we've built. I'm sure you've experienced that. Do you think you can have the glory without the gory part of it?
Did you make that up? I like that.
I don't know. Did I? I have no idea.
What do you mean, though? I don't know if I
Like,
understand.
because you've had the challenges over the years. You've made the mistakes. I have too. We've made good investments, bad investments. We've tried things that worked out. We've also had the, difficult clients, or, the difficult team member, or, that email at midnight that just pisses you off. It looks so easy, I think, from the outside. I don't think people really know what it means to own a 7 or 8 figure business sometimes.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
it really takes to get there.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is just part of I remember going through some of this stuff. And I remember when I was making some of the big changes too, big changes where I knew that people were not happy, that why aren't you offering this anymore? We're being abandoned. Like, just, that's when you realize how far you're in. You're like, oh my gosh, this is just getting weird.
Wow.
And I remember lying there next to Brett one night, and your spouse always knows, they can read you. And Brett's an amazing man, like, not telling me what to do, which is probably safest for him at most times. But he said, this is where everyone stops. This is usually where everyone stops, and you're going to keep going. And that is where a lot of people, I think, consciously or unconsciously, then will pull back, or they won't make the decision, or they'll kind of just quietly make change, or, you know what I mean? Instead of like saying, no, this is what we're doing. There's a strategic reason why we're doing it. And this is where we're going. And yeah, that's the stuff that it's not easy. And also my ego was screaming. My ego was not going down without a fight on that, about having the biggest events. We had acrobats at the one you came to,
gosh.
I think.
Oh my
we had
I was going to ask you, do you miss
Yeah.
it? Like, come on, you have to miss a little bit, because
I do.
come on, those Shine events were fucking
Oh, it
amazing.
was I miss I miss because it was at the beginning. I miss when I loved providing that experience for people. Like, I wanted it to be amazing when they walked in. I wanted them to leave transformed. Like, I miss a bit of the theater of it. It was just so exciting and fun and all that. And then to then say, you know what, I think I could actually make the same net income working with like 20 clients a year.
Right.
and not doing the hullabaloo. And also the market had expanded so much. There was so many other people doing a lot of the same thing. I'm like, you know what? These people are teaching it well. Some of them, they have cooler videos. They're shaking their booty. I can't even do that. Let me go over here. Okay. Like this, I'm just like, what is this? And I'm out, like, whoop,
Oh
just
my God, I
let me
love
go
it.
do this. And the market was shifting. It was changing. And so whenever I start getting irritated or feel like I'm getting lost, I'm like, where am I not stepping into my purpose? If I feel like I'm even being copied or bugged or irritated, I'm probably not over here doing what I really, really should be doing. And that's part of that. And again, this is all about that personal evolution for most of us. I'm not going to say all, but my business is always run parallel with my personal evolution and making those shifts of, and my business has to come with me. There's some people I know who create great businesses and have done, great things. And then they build that and maybe they've moved in the direction, but they can still run the business and kind of separate. I've never been that way. My business has always been very aligned with who I'm being and who I need to be at that moment.
The one time my business wasn't, there was a year that my business wasn't, and I honestly did not know what the hell I was doing. It was so out of sync, Allie. It was one year we had the business Richer, Smarter, Happier. And the joke is I wasn't richer, smarter, or happier having that business because it was trying to do what everyone else was doing versus doing what was my zone of genius. One of the things that people tell us is that we always have this crystal ball as to where the corporate space is headed. And so for those professional service providers that are working in that space, we always know where it's headed. I think one of the reasons I was originally drawn to you, even 10 years ago, was because I felt like you too had a crystal ball. There's always been something in you that it seems like so, and I'm sure it's the strategic part of your brain strategy. I think is like my number one strength is probably yours too. Looking at the tea leaves, but it always seems like you do know what the next thing is going to be or what's around that next corner. Do you think that's innate, or do you spend
Mm.
time sitting going, what's next? Like, are you actively looking at it, plotting out the points and triangulating and synthesizing and working on it, or is it just an instinct that you have?
No, thank you. And I don't know if anyone's articulated that to me before in that way. So I appreciate that. Because that also helps me out with just everything right now. The words. We're in a time right now that it's hard to even describe a lot what's going on in the world and how we're moving into it. So I'm very much into it. I think what's coming. I'm usually feeling something, and so I think it's a mix of that and the trusting of that for me personally, but also being very observant of what's going on in the world and industries and getting outside of my industry. I always was. I was never just one to go to one type of mastermind or group or something. I want to be around people doing different things, and I think the mistake, I don't think this is hard for people to do, but they have to do a few things. First is they have to start trusting how they're feeling. And women are natural at this. We've shut it off and we forget to start trusting how we're feeling. Trust our bodies, trust what we're bringing into our minds and hearts. And there's something to that for you. You may not know the how yet, but that's part of it. The other part is looking at what's going on and being very observant about your industry, thinking, where do you think this will be in 3 years? What if what I'm working on disappears? What if, there's a few clients I've had that over the years been very reliant, for example, on Facebook ads, right? And then the algorithms change instantly, could throw off a whole lot, right? So just a bit of taking that time to just think through what could go differently, what could go wrong, where do we think things are going? How do I lead people where I think they need to go, but also you're kind of have to meet them where they're at, which is challenging sometimes. I know for me on my show, I would just really go there and some people just aren't there. And I'm like, that's fine. You don't have to jive with me. I'm just wanting to think for yourself. I'm bringing observations. I'm bringing things that I'm picking up on. And I want everyone to start doing this for themselves, So it's a mix, but then once I'm locked in, that's when the strategy kicks in. If I'm locked in and say, I'm feeling this, I think this is the market, I think this is the way, then comes the research, right? Then comes figuring this out, like, oh, we could reach them this way. And actually there's a cool study that was just done and let's dig into this. And what are the top 3 ways we should be doing, that's where it kicks in. I think people sometimes overthink it from the beginning. And this is why I miss the days before social and even like so much online, because what you would do today is start Googling it. What most of my career I had to do was feel into it, and then get some limited information. But there's so much now. We're actually being taught not to trust ourselves. We're being taught not to trust our bodies right now. We're being taught not to trust anything that is internal with us. And that has been the secret to everything I've done. And I really want to encourage people to tap back into that. And right now, the day we're recording this and we're live, there's some crazy, I just called one my planetary. Do you ever have a friend you call like, what's going on the
Oh, yeah.
planets? It can't be me. Everyone's going bazonkers. There's like 6 planets and so I don't even know what's going. But she just said, you may want to hide under the bed today. Like, it's just going to be
Oh,
a
great.
really intense day. No, not in so many words. That was more my language. But it's the whole lesson for us right now is feeling into it, feeling into it. And I think women have brought that to business. Man, now is the time. Now is the time to start trusting that and just explore what you're feeling.
Oh my gosh. So when you were talking about how we're being taught not to trust ourselves and we always have to go to Google to find everything, there was a comedian. I have to share this anecdote. There's this comedian
Yeah.
on, I don't know, Comedy Central, Sirius XM radio, and he did this entire bit about how we won't buy anything anymore. We won't even trust ourselves to pick out the latest, flat screen TV or whatever it is that we need to buy unless we read, 50 reviews on Amazon. But for all we know, those 50 reviewers are mass murderers and, psychopaths who are posting these things. And yet we actually give these complete strangers that we have no idea if they are psychopaths. And I think about some of the psychopaths that are posting things they know nothing about in terms of advice for entrepreneurs. And we have
Mm-hmm.
lost our ability to trust ourselves. I think it's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why having trusted relationships is so important. And I want to talk about that in a minute. There's a question I've been dying to ask you for years. And you mentioned earlier about your ego screaming a little bit, Allie, when you were changing directions and narrowing in and really focusing on leading the leaders and not mass marketing. But I was curious, is there ever any part of your ego that gets frustrated by the fact that, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't know that you get the credit that you deserve for creating the online marketing space for women. Because prior to you, it wasn't until years later after I had worked with you and I had gone on to build my business that I really started to bump up against some of the sexism that's in the industry, frankly, the sort of machoism in the industry. And then I went back and I started looking at the history of sort of solopreneur, online marketing, so just a lot of the stuff that nowadays is just par for the course, but it wasn't always par for the course. And you were really the person who opened up the entire industry to women. Prior to you, it was like 99% male dominated, and it was very exclusive and insulated. And it was sort of like you were either in or you were on the outside of it. And you completely changed that game and opened it up. And I'm curious, is there any part of you that's like, you people, you do realize I did that, right? Is that, I've been dying to ask you that. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but I just
Yeah.
feel like you don't get that credit that, you deserve on that front.
Yeah, it's I'll say that I definitely dealt with that for a while. I definitely, absolutely. I'd be like, do they realize that she learned that from me? Yeah, I'm just like la 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 la, you know. And that's where people and then I had to I think there was a point then, probably like it's like seeing an old boyfriend that like, you're or with the girlfriend that you're jealous. I'm trying to think an analogy, like you see the ex-boyfriend walking in with the new girlfriend at the gym or something, and you're like, oh God, I can't even be here. I can't watch that. Just like I need to block him. I can't. I'm just going to go join another gym, or you know what I mean? Like something like it was kind of like that. It would just trigger me and trigger me and trigger me, and it was even worse when the team was coming to me. Hey, did you see what they're doing for their lunch? I'm like, stop, stop. We're doing, you do you. We're going to do us. We're going this way. And so even your team sometimes will, by the way, just a quick tip, your team will be watching too much what's going on, and you have to pull them back in and get them back locked into your vision. And here's why we're doing this. So I will say that went on for years that I had to get off every list. I stopped going to things. I stopped watching things. And that, though, Angelique, is where I really start. Actually, I'll tell you, the moment I knew, that's when I started my show. Because I said, here I am still watching these people and the idiotic things that are going on. I feel like so far, but I still feel sucked in. I need a new project. I need a hobby. I need to do something. And so I started Glambition. And I remember making the calls to these women I'd met saying, I'm starting a new podcast. This was 2014. It's still relatively before they were super cool and popular. And I lined up this slew of guests and started having these amazing conversations with women to pull me forward, to make sure my mind was at that place I should be, not watching boss babe, bitch, girl, badass, booty shaking
Yes.
coach companies. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And they help,
I
they help, don't get me wrong. Let's have
know.
fun. Let's help a lot of people. But I needed that. Oh my God. I'm like, I need intelligent conversations. I need to be around women who have built big, big, big businesses in different industries. And so I latched onto that, and that started pulling me out of everything. It started pulling me away from everything. And that is when the idea for everything I have now, including the trust, started to open. But you've got to make a conscious decision. If it bothers you, it's okay to admit it and just say, you know what, I can't be online and watch this. Like, it's just gross, or whatever you're dealing with. It's like being with, the game with the ex-boyfriend, right? I just can't deal with this right now. I'm still like processing where I need to be and what I'm doing. And so I hope that answers your question.
That boyfriend analogy is fantastic. Well, for
Yeah.
what it's worth, I think those of us who have studied the industry and who understand sort of the birth of it, although I will say that was it Showtime or HBO? I'm so bummed the show got canceled because of the pandemic. It was the one with Kirsten Dunst on becoming a god in Central Florida. Did you happen to see that? Oh my God,
No.
Allie, you've got to go watch like 2 episodes of that show. I can't believe it got canceled. Kirsten Dunst was, I think George Clooney was the other executive producer, but it was about Amway. And I mean, I think they called it Famway, okay, on the show.
Yeah.
But it goes back to sort of the birth of the personal development space,
Oh,
the idea,
wow.
my God, but I mean, look, it's a ridiculous show, but they're all at the mastermind meetings and
Oh,
they're
it's like a
investing in
comedy.
their
And yeah.
coaches.
Okay.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. Well, for
That
what it's
sounds
worth, I
perfect.
want to give you the credit here for opening up the industry to women, because I think you redefined the game for women entrepreneurs. I really do. And I saw Pat posted something about it on there as well. But you really did. You really opened up the game. I think certainly people like me wouldn't have a business that we have doing what we've done for the last decade. Last year was our 10-year anniversary. And, I wouldn't even have known that was possible because it wasn't even in my awareness when I left corporate to even be able to have a company like we do. So anyway, so
Yeah.
let me give you that credit
Yeah.
because I
Thank
think
you.
it's important that we all do that. So I want your team gave us. We were talking to your team in sort of the pre-interview, and you have this term that I love called the excellence burnout. Can you talk about what that is?
Yeah. Um, and it's a term I use, but I'll tell you, the concept for me came from a book from Gay Hendricks. He's still
Mm,
around. It's a very simple read. It's called The Big Leap. And it's a book that I picked up, I think initially maybe 10 years ago, and kind of like, read it, was like, yeah, it's interesting. All right. Didn't hit me. Sometimes you read something and then I put it away, took it back out again. I would probably right after I had my twins, and you're doing a lot of cleaning out, and we'd moved here. I'm still getting to know my husband basically, and like it all happened so quickly. And I found that book again, and I read it, and I sobbed. I sobbed. I was like, oh my gosh, this describes exactly where I was trapped. So he talks about 3 basic levels of kind of like, not competence, but there's competence is your base level, and that's where you're doing something that you're decent at, and kind of, I'm grossly paraphrasing it, earning a living, and that's your skill. And many people out there live this way. It's fine. They have a job, they're happy with that, and they do what they do. But then there's excellence. There's a level that what you're good at. People tell you what you're good at, and you get really good at it, and you can build a whole business around that, and it becomes what you're known for. It becomes what people rely on you for. It becomes your identity. You hear where I'm going? It becomes just everything. Like, oh, she's known for X. And the next level, though, is genius.
mm,
And genius is where it's scary to go, where you're saying no to maybe things that everyone relied on you for before, or that built your business to a certain point. And genius is that little weird place where I know that I had to deal with, deciding, was I going to go there or not? And I put it off for a while. And that's when you get something I would call excellence burnout. And I'll say there's new levels to this. Um, it's kind of like you go through this ascension again. It's like our own little Maslow's hierarchy of evolving. And then we think we're kind of done. And then there's a whole other level. And so that excellence burnout is where you do feel a bit trapped. Like, you're good at what you're doing. Nothing's wrong, right? Nothing's wrong with the business. You're helping a lot of people make a ton of money. Like, what am I? And women especially, I think we feel guilty. I was like, what do I have the right to complain about, my Lord? Like, I've reached all my goals, and I'm helping all these people. And like, why would I honor some strange craving I have for like more creativity and more meaning, or that there's something else? I mean, isn't this the thing? So if you're interested in that, pick up the book. It's The Big Leap. And just so many things grabbed me from that. And when I have a client who comes in to work with me, if I feel like there may be a little something going on, I don't do it the first meeting, but I wait a bit, and then I kind of slip it in. I say, hey, this may it does sound like an AA thing or something. You may want to read this brochure. If
As
you have
long
a
as it's not
problem.
Famway, as long as you're not slipping in the Famway brochure.
Yeah, but this is the exciting thing, just to wrap up, is that, look, especially for women right now, this is still all relatively new for us. The idea that we have all these opportunities and all these exciting things, and especially with the whole online boom. So don't necessarily get trapped though in what you thought you had to build. There may be something just really delicious above that, where it gets even easier and even better.
Yeah, it's that trapped piece, because I think so many folks, Allie, they look at what everyone else is doing thinking that's the right model. Um,
Yeah.
and they don't even consider the idea of, what if I was, it's interesting because we throw the word entrepreneur around a lot, but entrepreneurs create things that don't already exist. I mean, that's really what an entrepreneur is supposed to do. So, what we end up with in so many places is a cookie cutter of something that someone else has done, versus really stepping back and saying, but how am I supposed to do it? Just because someone else does it this way doesn't mean it's going to work for me. Um,
Yeah.
and it's almost like, how, well, I don't want to use that analogy. I'll get hate mail for that analogy. I was just thinking about how, when you have too much of the same, how it actually bakes in that flaw into it, right? So you really have to look at, we talk about diversification of portfolios, for
Mm.
example, right? If you put
Hmm.
all of your money, if all of your money or all of your stocks were in hotels and airlines, probably
Yeah.
wasn't a good year for you, right?
Yeah.
Financially. So that idea of really diversifying your business from the perspective of the model that you create and looking at what's going to work. I think one of the
Hmm.
best ways to do that is to surround yourself with other smart people. We really emphasize that in our community, because we really do believe that selling to corporate is its own animal, and you should talk to other smart people that are selling to corporate,
Yeah.
right? But you really, I mean, I think one of the big pivots you made was putting relationships at the forefront of what you're doing in your business, and really creating space for women to forge those relationships and cross pollinate ideas
Hmm.
into different spaces. So, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. And again, there are times for all of this, and there are times that you'll do both. And if you want to learn about a new industry or model or specific strategy, go learn from that person. Angelique, you are the go-to person for learning to sell to corporate, right? Like, and you want to be around people like that. And then there's other times you're going to need, maybe at the same time, want to be around people with a variety of experiences, with skill sets, different industries, which I didn't really understand until, way back, going back to those, the days, but when I was the only woman in a 21 guy mastermind. Imagine, I won't even tell you the jokes. I mean, like, way before me too. Like, I'd just be like, ha ha ha. Okay, guys, let's get back to the business models. You know, and but I remember being in those groups and thinking, well, gosh, what am I going to learn from the real estate guy? You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing online marketing stuff, and then he has some sales conversation thing that he shared. I was like, wow, all right, that's amazing. And then someone else was in like martial arts, but they were talking about something that they were doing with their clients, and I was like, oh, that's a really great idea for membership retention. I'm going to write that down. That's when I really started to appreciate having a variety of industries in there. People can get very myopic and very locked in to their industry models. And models are great where you know you have a plan, you're going to give me the recipe, I'm going, let's do it. But make sure you're always open, because that next level for you is probably not in that space. Like if you're thinking, if you start to crave different ideas, maybe just getting some new perspectives on things or new things that you can inject to the model that may have not been done, that's where you have to kind of look outside, put that cookbook, keep it on your desk, but also be looking around outside of you. And that's one of the reasons when I created the trust, it's very interesting because I had people ask, is this all people from one type of industry? They just may have assumed that. I said, we have commercial real estate women in there. We have women in healthcare. We have women from just some coaches and consultants, yes, but it's all over the map. And you just be amazed at the conversations. And for the women at this level, the cross-pollination of ideas then that happens. Just a quick example, we'll be on what we're just had a Zoom gathering, and now we're excited to be in Miami in a few weeks. Most of the group does want to come. We're just so excited to gather and see each other in person. And conversation, there was one of the members who said, you know what, I have actually banked a bit this year. It's been a better year than we thought. I'd like to invest in some commercial real estate. Someone across the screen's like, in the Brady Bunch, like, okay. They said, hey, there's a great SBA program for commercial real estate loans or something. And so there's this conversation now happening that I feel like the godmother of, bringing these women together. And for me, the joy, Angelique, now is it's not about me. It's not about what I'm teaching. I'm holding the space. I'm attracting the people. I'm leading the mission, but holding the space for these women to come together, because I really feel our resources and our courage have not caught up with our opportunity. People need to think forward this way.
Oh my gosh. That term, holding the space, years ago, a decade ago, I don't know that I would have understood what that meant, Allie. Now that we have the community that we do, it's it takes on this life of its own that is so beyond you. And the stuff that happens within these kinds of communities is just absolute magic. Someone asked a question. I'm curious what you have to say about it. And thank you for that, Beatrice. That's really kind of you to say. I don't know if Allie, if you can see that statement there from Beatrice. So thank
I
you
don't,
very much.
nope, I don't, but thank
Um,
you. Sounds good.
you can put that up there. She said,
Oh, okay.
over the last 10 years, you've both been an example of adaptability, understanding where the trends in business and acquisition are going. So thank you for that.
Ah.
Um, I think someone asked a question. I'm curious what you say about this. Any recommendations on leading a soul led business mastermind? And I'm curious what you have to say about that, because I think you're someone who has always led very intuitively and incredibly connected, even if you didn't always talk about it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's the future. I think it is the future. I think that what we're witnessing right now in we're seeing this big schism. Is that the right word? Chasm, schism.
I think we can
Um,
use either.
yeah, we've had the separation of the spiritual and the practical for so long, right? And right now is this giant. I don't know if you swear in the show, but like, I mean, just the last year or two, energetically, I'm going to get a little deep and or planetary, whatever. There's all these forces at work right now. What you are seeing right now is everything coming up to be dealt with, healed, corrected in the span of like 2 years, and that's more in the history of the planet. So there's all this intensity. But when we're through this, we're going to have realized that this was the merging of like finally us honoring that spiritual along with the practical. I think there's going to be more demand for that than ever. It's interesting because it's even happening behind the doors, really in the trust. Like, and I was like, I'm not going to go call this some, spiritual group, but I've always, you have to see where the market is and see what they want to hear or not. But I knew I wanted a certain level for the group for revenues and business accomplishments. But then there's really like this soul evolution in there. But I think that's absolutely the future. People are going to be looking for how to work in the new 5D kind of reality that we're moving into. If you don't understand what I'm doing, just start looking this stuff up. It's fascinating. We're really going through this human evolution. So I think you can't go wrong with that at all.
We're seeing it in the corporate space. I
Tell
mean, how
me.
can we not, right? Because humans are humans. And so, as we're all sort of waking up to what's going on, and you're really seeing some organizations adapt and others aren't. And so, what's happening? women are leaving. All these women are this mass, and I know the pandemic has been, almost a mass trigger of that this past year, but it was
Yeah.
it was already happening. I mean, I
It's like
think
the final push.
it was the
Mhm.
final push. Yeah, I mean, we saw,
Yeah.
I think it was, God, it's been probably 6, 7 years ago, Harvard Business Review called women the canaries in the coal mine, in terms
Mm.
of what's happening, right? And that was, they made that prediction 6, 7, 8 years ago. But when
Wow.
we look at it, I feel like we're seeing it in corporate, we're seeing it in the entrepreneur space, because I think a lot of women are rejecting sort of the macho, some of the sort of machoism, the very aggressive type of marketing that's out there. We're seeing it in the way that we collaborate, which you're talking about in the trust, and we see it in our community. Just the more our community is not all women, but just that sort of more conscious collaboration that's happening, Allie. Where is this all headed, you think? If you look in your, I'm curious to know, if you're looking in your crystal ball 3, 5 years from now, what do you see?
Mm. Um, I think we won't be wearing masks. Hopefully, I
Thank
don't
God.
know. Wait, is that going to get us censored now?
No.
So no. um, I do think, I think right now, okay, that will be where we saw people who jumped on opportunities that they felt. So I think 3 to 5 years, you're going to see the results of the things that if you're feeling now and act on, that's when you'll really be seeing who was thinking ahead, who was feeling ahead, who kind of knew what was going on and started to build what they were building. So I know that the question came in, for example, about the soul based mastermind, or just starting it now. And it may start a little steady, little solid, but man, those are the things that if you tap into now how people are feeling, it's really going to be out in a few years. So many industries with ripe with opportunity right now. And just look outside your door, everybody. Anything you see disrupting, go like, where can we use a better model? Education, health, right? Wellness, public safety, anything you see right now, like, wow, that old model never really worked and it's blowing up. Like, what could we create? A new system, a new method, a new tool? Start having fun like this, start thinking like this. This is how the big entrepreneurs think. And I'd love to see, especially more women do that.
Oh, amen to that. We're always saying to people, why don't you look at what's not working? Most things don't work that well. It's the thing. Like, most companies, we see this all the time. Most companies survive in spite of themselves. No,
True.
seriously,
It's so
right? Like,
true.
most companies survive in spite. So, I mean, there's so much opportunity. I think the biggest mistake personally that people can make right now is feeling like it's all already been done. People ask us, how do I stand out? How do we do something different? I'm like, look, a lot of what's been done doesn't work all that well anyway. So the
Yeah.
idea that there's not room for you, or I think you used an expression earlier, Allie, about being that category of one. There's so much opportunity to do that right now.
Yeah.
If folks want to spend more time with you in the trust community, how can they find out about that? Who is it right for, and how do they find out more about that?
Yeah, jointhetrust.org is our page for the trust. It gives just a bit of information. We do have people just fill out a brief form, and then we have a basic interview process, and you can see if it's a good fit for you. But this was designed to be something a little different. There are some networks around for women who have reached 7 figures, 8 figures. They're good organizations. I just kind of wanted something new that would capture the zeitgeist of the moment right now, a different flavor, a lot of women with these different types of new businesses, new ways of working, new ways of thinking, and get together on a regular basis. And so we have live meetings. Those are of course optional. I'm going to force you to come. Like, people look at the optional, like, that's your decision. If you want to get on the plane and come. Or we have plenty of online meetings as well. So for those who can't travel or don't want to travel right now, we bring in nine-figure, even billion-dollar women who have built really, really amazing businesses and spend the morning with us. We had Ellen Latham last year, who co-founded Orange Theory, join us in Miami. This year's Kara Golden from Hint Water. I'm working on a big name for the fall. And they spend the morning with us. This isn't a keynote where they speak and leave. They're really sitting and listening to us and answering our questions. And so have a look. It's also designed to be a nice complement to anything you're already in. This is not a coaching program. This is not, I don't even like calling it a program. It's a new resource. It's a new support network. We have a private app to keep in touch which is very helpful based on we don't know where everything's going. I think with tech, could be a lot of changes next year. So we own our own social platform for the group. And jointhetrust.org. And otherwise, I'm on Glambition Radio is my podcast, and I'm very active on Instagram, Allie Brown Official.
That's amazing. Jointhetrust.org. I know Vince had that URL up there in case any of you
Oh,
missed
great.
it. But Allie, this has been amazing to chat with you. It's been amazing to watch your evolution over the last decade plus. I know I speak for a lot of women out there when we say thank you for continuing to grow outside of your comfort zone, because it's given so many of us the permission to do that for ourselves. I certainly
Mm.
am one of those women. So I really appreciate you. And I know that it's not always easy to do it, but I certainly personally appreciate it. And I'm sure there are hundreds of thousands of women who feel the same, even though I can only speak for myself. So
Aw,
thank you
thank you,
so
Angelique. You're
much.
a rock star. I've known you were ever since you were on stage like over 10 years ago, and just blown away what you've done. And I just texted my team. I'm like, look at what Angelique's doing with her show. We need to do all this stuff.
I love
We
it.
need to
Well,
do
all
more of this.
credit to our producer, Vince, who's an incredible and valued member of this team. But thank you for being here. Everybody, check out jointhetrust.org. And of course, don't miss Allie's Glambition podcast if you haven't watched it. It really, or listened to it, I should say. It is a really fantastic show. The interviews are just incredible discussions, not much different from this incredible discussion that Allie had with me today. Allie, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
It was great. Thanks, and bye.
Bye, guys. All right, everybody. So, real quick, we are going to be back next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern with another phenomenal guest. If you're not already listening to us on Spotify, that's a great way to catch this show on the go so you can hear the audio only version. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to us over on YouTube. And yes, I was ribbing Clubhouse just a bit because of some of the nonsense that's going on over there. But one of the ways we're planning to use Clubhouse as we go forward is really for an opportunity for those in our community to get some Q&A time with me if you're looking for advice on your business. So none of those rooms where you have, 50 speakers on stage and everyone's trying to fight to get in a word edgewise. We're really looking at how we'll be able to utilize that resource in order to support all of you and in your business and in winning corporate clients. So make sure if you are on Clubhouse that you're following me at Angelique Rewers. All right, everybody, until next week, this is Angelique signing off. And one last big thank you to Allie Brown.